Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in, and welcome to the BoxCast podcast. My name is Josh.
I'm Wade.
And I'm Gary.
And we have a super juicy topic to talk about today, one that we can all relate to. When I go to buy my first camera,
Don't buy it from Best Buy.
don't buy it from Best Buy.
That's not too bad of advice. But
First start.
I think we actually did buy our first camera from Best Buy.
We did,
in
Gary.
Ohio.
Don't be like these guys.
Oh.
Canon
my
Vixia HF-G20. That's what we bought.
Wow.
Anyway, topic for discussion today is about something you may know when you're going to buy your first camera or a new camera for live streaming. Do I go the route of buying a video camera, a traditional camcorder?
Yes.
That's the term, is a camcorder or professional video camera, or do I go out and buy a mirrorless camera?
No.
And there are warring debates happening at this table right now on which one you should choose. The answer is it depends, of course, but we were going to dive into today on the various different camera types there are and which direction you should head in when you're going to start live streaming.
I'm going to leave. So
Last episode we talked about audio, and Josh and I just blankly stared at you, Gary. This
Yeah.
episode you can just blankly
I
stare
know.
at us.
I don't know how many of our viewers will maybe comment on that later, but yeah, the glazing over was awesome.
Yeah. Oh,
Gary just started talking about
Can you,
things,
can
and
you explain mono versus stereo?
I feel like we were like that person, that meme with the lady who has all the symbols by her head. We were
Yes.
just trying to calculate. We're like, we don't
Math everywhere.
know. Yeah, we have no
yeah, I
idea
had
what's going
smoke
on.
coming out of my ears.
Yeah, we could smell it from here. Yeah, we know. So, all right, man. Well, okay. So, I guess maybe I'll help drive some of the questions. 'cause
Yeah.
I'm not a camera guy.
Mm-hmm.
And if I ever was a camera guy, I'd probably turn to you guys for the camera. I know that when I turned for our church, we asked your guys' opinions. You sent me like 15, and then I was like, "Can you guys just star one?"
Yeah.
So, and it was actually the HF G20 that
Yeah.
we got. So, it's still a great camera. It works really well.
Oh yeah.
But so, give me some reasons, gentlemen, as to why I would choose a mirrorless camera over, say, a standard camcorder.
Okay.
Okay, so the first thing about it is it's going at the highest level, it's going to give you a more cinematic, higher quality image in a typical I'm streaming from home circumstance.
But isn't a mirrorless a DSLR essentially?
Yeah, if we say mirrorless, we can say DSLR. The difference between mirrorless and DSLR cameras is there's no mirror like reflecting
Right.
in the camera like there used to be. Like, you know how old cameras used to take a photo and you'd hear that snap, snap, snap?
Yeah.
They don't
The
really
shutter.
Yeah, the shutter. There's no like mirrored shutter in a mirrorless camera like that.
So this isn't one of like those 1970s like hold up to your eye
Right.
periscopes, right? You look
No.
over the
Right.
fence line, it's got the mirrors bouncing images.
Yeah, that's a great point because you might look at a mirrorless camera and think that's only for taking photos. But obviously a lot of new age videographers, people like Wade and myself, we're leaning more and more towards mirrorless cameras because they just offer such higher quality images.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of reasons for that.
And I will say, well,
But that
after
doesn't mean
Josh-
they're better. That's just we're making the case for them on that side of things.
Yeah, and I will say, be careful because I know a lot of times if you get the DSLR style body or mirrorless camera body, just make sure it has a clean HDMI output. And I'll put some images
Oh,
on the
yeah.
screen of what a clean HDMI output
Do we use
does not look like.
salt, soap, and water when
So
you do this?
yes,
Yeah,
you
you-
take it to the bathtub and you clean it up. No,
Dump it in.
pretty much a clean HDMI output, which I would say almost every camcorder has this. What it is when you plug it into a device like a BoxCaster or a switcher or a recorder, it gives you the full image. It's nice and clean. There's no icons on the screen everywhere like that.
So no HUD.
No HUD, no display icons is what I'd call them.
That's a great
On
that's a great way of
screen
looking at it.
on-screen markers, as some cameras call them. But with the camcorders, you'll be good. With some DSLRs, especially some of the, and I dare I say cheap, they're not super cheap. They could be $600, $700.
Lower tiered.
Lower tiered, they won't give you the clean HDMI output. So I think Elgato actually has a really, really good selection of things they've tried. So I'll put a link on the screen or go to Elgato and check the clean HDMI output. Just Google search that. And they have a whole list of cameras that tell you what it is. What I'm getting at is once you determine this camera has a clean HDMI output, the mirrorless cameras will create a more cinematic look, give you more shallow depth of field, which in some live streaming circumstances, that can be really good. In others, it might not be necessary. Or
Give me an example.
yeah, so we were just streaming an event. It was like a charity event. and there was just a shot where there was these two people standing in front of the camera, and they were pretty close to the camera. There wasn't actually a ton behind them. It was like a fireplace. And for that, we used our Canon EOS R. And it was just a nice wide shot of them, got them in focus, and they looked really, really good. If we had used like our Sony, which we have like Sony NX5Rs is what they're called, or maybe if we had used like a Canon G20, the image would probably look flat. The lighting would just be okay. And I think in a circumstance like where you're doing an interview or you're doing something with one person looking right at the camera and they're kind of close to the camera, a mirrorless camera does a really, really good job.
Is it because you want the depth of field to be different?
Yes.
You want that contrast
Yes.
on the back end. I know I've seen footage of you guys, what you've done in the past with different, styles of
Yeah.
cinematography in your videos and stuff. So, but you want that contrast. So I guess the main thing is you want your focus to be on whoever's in the foreground and the background to melt away into the video.
Right.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes. You want that depth of field.
And the other thing about them is this could be seen as an advantage or as a disadvantage, but mirrorless cameras usually allow you to pick from a variety of lenses to create a more artistic look. Or you're going to spend a lot of money.
So we can't just use a 50
Yeah.
nifty and call it a day?
Oh, yeah.
The 50 nifty will get you very far, but it won't help you in every situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I think in this podcast, what you're going to learn is each camera is good for each situation, and we're going to try to break that down for you guys.
They're just tools, and they're all designed for different jobs.
Right.
Well, but you have to choose the right tool for the right job.
Yes.
Right.
Right. Like I wouldn't use a hammer to make pancakes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And
I
so
mean, I
there are
could.
some live streaming scenarios where that camera makes more sense. There are some scenarios where a traditional video camera, also known as a camcorder, makes more sense.
Talk to me about distance then.
So the thing you do lose with a mirrorless camera, I guess we're doing pros and cons of mirrorless. The thing you do lose is a general zoom range because you'd have to find a fat lens that's going to be able to go up to 600 millimeters.
So we're talking
And
a
they're
lens
usually
that's large.
A larger lens with, that can zoom in really far, and it can mount to that small camera body that you have. So
And
you do lose
got it.
that, and even if you are able to pay for that, like Wade and I have a 70 to 200, and that was like $2,800.
And
So
it-
they're
and it
not cheap.
Probably needs its own tripod at the same time. right?
Yeah, you almost have to
Yes.
mount the lens
Yeah,
separately.
you can't use really a cheap tripod when you have such a big lens.
So
like
we
that.
don't want
Yeah.
to tie any twine
So-
to the front of it and like arch it over.
Yeah,
something
don't
and
use
hold
any
it
don't use any
there.
gaff tape to just
Yeah.
tape it all
Ooh,
down.
that's a good idea. I like
that.
So
if you're in a situation like that where you need, you're doing live sports and things like that, and you need
A
to zoom in pretty far in to capture the action, or you're doing multicam, mirrorless may not be the way to go for you. But in a vlog style setup, or like what we're doing now,
Yeah.
we're using mirrorless cameras to get the close-ups of us because they just create a better, cleaner look. They're better with skin tones, like Wade said.
and I'm sure you could
They're not
maybe-
as grainy
you
usually.
could almost maybe tell a little bit if Kevin, our producer, wants to like show you for like the camera that's facing us is our Canon EOS R mirrorless camera going mini HDMI to HDMI right into our switcher because it's just right over there.
What's the lens on it?
It is a 35 millimeter
35
lens.
millimeter.
Ooh,
See,
like
it's a
old school
prime-
Kodak 35.
see, and
It's a
this is-
prime lens.
and this is one of the again advantages, disadvantages. It's perfect because it's right here, but you can't zoom with that lens because it's
Right.
only 35 millimeters. So you're stuck
But it
with
gives
that
us,
distance.
you're stuck. It's a little, it seems
to, like-
counterintuitive to
So your
people
only
that-
zoom option is to walk forward or back.
Is to
Mhm.
move the tripod forward or back.
Okay.
Again, a disadvantage. Now, if we cut to a wide shot here, you'll see that this is our Sony NX5R. The reason that we're using it is because, I don't know, it's just a wide shot. We need another camera, and this is probably the angle that we spend the least amount of time on, oddly enough.
And we ran out of cameras, so
and we ran out of cameras. But I would assume you should be seeing it. It's probably not as crisp. There's maybe a little more graininess in
Mhm.
it.
yeah.
But when you zoom this guy in far, like you're like not far, but hey, someone's on stage and you need to zoom in on them, and the lighting's half decent, it looks good. I mean,
Well,
we were
that's going
super
back
surprised.
to pros and cons of mirrorless cameras. That's a great point. Is mirrorless cameras are going to do a better job in low light than a professional camcorder.
Yeah.
So that is an advantage, and they tend to. Now, are you live streaming in a low lit situation? I don't know, probably not. But sometimes the ideal is less than lighting, or the lighting is neutral, and the camcorder does a bad job with just
Sure.
neutral office lighting. I
Yeah.
would say, and that's another good reason to have more of like a mirrorless camera.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So those are the pros and cons of those.
So what about customizing your DSLRs, your mirrorlesses? What would you
that's a
say
great
is
point.
some options
I mean,
outside of course, cinefoil?
oh,
We love cinefoil. We have so much of that now.
the interesting thing is that when you buy a mirrorless camera, it's kind of like you're buying a stock car that
Okay.
doesn't have any of the bells and whistles to it, and you need to kind of soup it up a little bit. With a lens, with a recorder, with an external battery, with all the extra stuff that can make it like souped up.
A hand grip.
A hand grip, a stabilizer, all that stuff. When you're buying a video camera or a professional camcorder, a lot of that stuff is baked in, including the lens, which some people don't want to think about having to buy a lens.
But aren't there traditional camcorders out there now that offer the ability to swap out the lens?
There are some,
Like
but they're
Blackmagic Ursa?
yeah, but the price point at that point, you're spending a lot of money to milk that camera
Well, sure. Of course you are.
to get the most out of it.
And
It's an option.
I would
We've
say
used
we
it.
love the Blackmagic cameras. Gary's camera is a Blackmagic camera, actually, the Pocket 6K. The only real problem with those, and again, we're mixing a lot of cameras with our setup, is they don't have autofocus.
Yeah,
So you have to focus.
you need a focus
you
puller.
have to manually focus on stuff. So if you have someone who is on a stage, or especially sports, and they're running around and you need to keep
there's a lot of
refocusing,
changing.
that can be really tough. When something like a camcorder can keep focus pretty well, depending on the brand, and I mean the DSLR does decent with focus too. I think it's a little bit more like
Well,
choppy.
I mean,
with
it
the
does
focus,
take a
but-
lot to make me look good. So
Oh,
we have
we make you look
we have
great.
to put the best on. So
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, the
Um,
thing to remember with those, like the Blackmagic Ursa broadcasts, they're at a great price point, but you have to remember, like I said, you're just buying a stock car.
Yeah, the camera lens in itself is going to be.
Yeah.
You're going to have to buy really
ridiculous.
nice lenses, really nice adapters, all kinds of weird mods to get it to go.
Yeah, you could put with the camera plus a lens plus maybe a focus like wheel to make sure things are in focus. You're
Oh.
not touching the lens. You could spend $5 or $7 real quick.
So with a DSLR or a mirrorless camera at this point, what about like a zoom controller? If that was ever like a, would you
Oh, I'm
would you
so glad you
recommend the
brought that
zoom
up.
controllers for the camcorders, and using DSLR mirrorless more for that static shot with the zoom in on the camera?
Yeah.
For the lens. So the benefits can be pretty much applied to both scenarios. It's just you would be more interested in cinematography style at that point.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, really the bottom line is, do you want it to look cinematic, or do you want it to have that live produced event look?
Right.
The only other downside I can think with mirrorless, because I really hyped them up, but the only other downsides are, one, the record times, depending on the manufacturer, can be up to 30 minutes, so you can't record like a full worship service without.
Oh, you can't record more than 30 minutes, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes.
you have to click the
Yeah.
record button again to restart the recording.
Oh, so
which-
that's what Kevin has to do from time to time.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So now you
okay.
understand.
Poor Kevin.
But yeah, that can
Yeah,
that
He's
can
that
got to work for
happens.
his bread, boys. He's got to
He
work for
does.
his bread.
He's working so hard.
be.
Well, and then the other thing is the battery lives can be a little weaker on them. The batteries that they build into professional camcorders do tend to be designed to last longer because they know they know you're an event videographer, and that's what you're doing. Whereas when Wade and I go shoot weddings all throughout a day with a mirrorless camera, we can be burning through like 4, 5, 6 batteries.
And how many batteries do you have now?
For
I think
how
we
many
have
Canon
6.
batteries?
Six.
At least
Yeah.
6.
Yeah, but we also have a really big beefy battery that I love, and I don't know the exact name of it. But
We found something.
we found something.
dummy.
that
It's
pretty-
called a dummy
Yeah,
battery.
pretty much it's like a dummy battery that we can put on the bottom, and it will last like hours running that
Wow.
Canon
It'll last
battery.
us like 10 hours.
And we could
but we
always
had to
plug it in.
spend another $250 to get that to happen.
Yeah.
Wow.
To at the end of the day to make it all work.
Right.
So I want to jump back to cinematography for a second. So I mean, I know like the Alfred Hitchcock cinematography or the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right?
Yeah.
When we say cinematography, what exactly do you mean?
I think we're talking about not only like how high quality the image looks, but how artistic and how much it follows a story.
Okay.
I think when you're talking about videography and live event production, what your priority is clarity and correctness.
So how do you achieve that? Is that through something like not post correction on color, but would it be like saturation, contrast, white balancing, dynamic ranging? Like where does that lead?
How do you achieve that live or
yeah, how do you? I mean, that's primarily what we discuss, right? Is like live streaming.
Yeah.
So when we say cinematic style,
yeah.
what plays into that?
Well, I mean, it gets a little deeper than just the lens and the camera. There's like the set and the lighting.
Give me the 50-cent tour here.
I don't know how to do it in just a couple of sentences. What do you think?
I would say, again, because kind of the argument is like, when would you use a mirrorless or like more cinematic camera versus like a camcorder, right? So in certain situations, like I would think if you're doing an interview between two people,
Okay.
and you don't need to zoom in super far
Static
because
shot.
you've got the lighting, you got your set, you've got and you have a static shot, and maybe you have a camera that just pivots between the two. That's a good time to use mirrorless cameras. And hey, the interview's only going to be 30, 45 minutes. It's not going to be a 2-hour event. The other times I would maybe use a mirrorless camera, and we use this often, or not often, but if you are doing sports and it doesn't need to fully record the whole time and you want to put it on like a Ronin or something like that, you could put a little camcorder on a Ronin too, like a stabilizer, but it will give you, I know, and this is like the new thing in the NFL, and it's so funny to see like everyone freak out when you see like a
they've never
depth
seen
of
it
field
before.
camera.
that depth of field camera. Now those are like really, really high end, obviously cinematic cameras, but like something like our EOS R could recreate that at like a local basketball game or a football game,
Okay.
where you have it on the field and it's just really shallow depth of field, and someone's like coming up to the camera and it's like, whoa, what kind of camera are they using? When your camcorder might not give you that same look.
It's not a camera. They've shrunk the entire event down to the size of your TV, and
Yes.
it's now there.
Yes. So
Right? Like Willy Wonka style.
Yeah.
but I would think, I mean, again, going back to camcorders, when you need better battery life, you need zoom, you need probably the ability to follow someone a little bit easier while zooming in and out, and you can add a zoom controller to a camcorder on your tripod and stuff like that. I know we have some videos on what zoom controllers are. That's when you'd want to use a normal camcorder.
Yeah, the advantage of it, I mean, I think the number one thing for us is we often find ourselves for live events in the back of a room, or like hiding or tucked away. Yeah.
Yes.
And creeping from the stands, or anything like that. And the ability to have a built-in lens that can zoom in 20, 30, 40x optical, just meaning 20 times farther in from its widest
The
setting.
keyword there is optical, not digital.
Not
Well,
digital.
digital's not bad either.
It's getting better,
It's getting better.
Yeah.
but not digital.
Yeah.
Optical is the important keyword.
Yeah,
right?
you want to focus on the optical zoom. But even on the Sony NX5Rs, they have what's called clear image zoom, which is digital zoom, but it gets you up to, is it 30x?
I think so, yeah.
It gets you pretty far. And we'll pull up some examples. But we were probably about 100 feet back last Friday at a Cleveland mayoral debate, and what was important is to capture each mayoral candidate's faces and expressions, and we wanted them like uptight. You know how like when you watch presidential debates,
Yeah.
they're all up in there.
Yeah, they're like they got the podium, and then there's a
Yeah.
set.
Yeah.
There's a set ratio to how they capture those people. But
Yeah.
yes,
Exactly. We wanted the same thing, but they could only put us like at least 100 feet back from the stage.
okay.
And we were like, well, it's a good thing we have these because they were able to get in exactly
Because,
there.
Yeah, I think if we would have had our mirrorless camera, you would have needed at least like there's lenses that are like 100 to 400 millimeter. Might have got us to the same look that we wanted to for
Yeah.
the NX, like the Sonys that we have. And someone too, if you know the exact ratio of it, I mean, comment below or correct me if I'm wrong, but but then it also limits you if someone wants to start walking around and everything. Now you're like super close in. And so for those situations, like Josh was saying, like when you need to zoom in, you need to get close, and the lighting there was decent. It was
If the
okay.
lighting's good.
Then yeah, we always
Always go back to this
always
lighting
go back to the
thing.
lighting.
Dude, well,
thing.
that's the disadvantage that professional camcorders have is they're just not as great in low light.
Yeah, or I think we talked about this in one of the first
And I
couple
think they're not
episodes.
designed that way.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is a weird tangent, but I think they're not designed that way because they expect the people using those big bulky camcorders to be shooting in places like press conferences and stages and churches where there is like some light design happening, and they're like, well, that's taken care of. Whereas I think mirrorless cameras are designed with the cinematographer in mind. We're like shooting night scenes and shooting all kinds of weird
or
lighting
where you're
scenarios.
sitting in the middle of a theater and it's all fluorescent lighting.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I mean,
all the time.
So that's not considered well lit. That's considered low light.
I would say that's low light for. Yeah, I would,
well, we talked about
because
this.
it's just standard lighting.
We talked about this in one of our first episodes where we were talking about how we were streaming graduations.
Right.
And we actually changed out one of our Sony cameras for our Blackmagic camera because we were trying to zoom in on the podium. And the podium shot, since we were just using the gym lighting, they didn't add any additional lighting like on the stage. When you had the Sony up close, we had to put the gain up a little bit. So it was maybe like 9. It's not dB. Does it go by? How does gain go on there?
Gain is dB also.
Okay, so go. Let's say 9 dB or 12 dB. When you saw the Sony and they were close, it was so grainy and gross because there was no real lighting on them. It was all just like a ton of fluorescent, whatever, a ton of lights in the ceiling. So we actually had to switch to our Blackmagic camera, sacrifice a little bit of zoom and distance, but it looked so much better because I don't know,
The image was cleaner.
The image was cleaner and it just did a lot better in low light. Now, you maybe shouldn't be switching mid-event, but hey, after one graduation looks okay, you're like, I need to go to another one.
Okay,
Another camera if you
so,
can.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. In our brief, you guys have literally hit everything in the brief in like a matter of 20 minutes here. So
We're so
It's
hyped
fine.
up on
You're
cold
so
brew and
hyped up.
excited
we're
about the
getting
topic.
so
your
wrecked on
cold
cold
brew
brew.
has got you. Like, you're just,
Have we even answered any questions yet?
I
'Cause
really don't even know.
I don't know if
Like,
you've
I
learned
actually
anything.
have another point to this though that I wanted to make, that if you can learn to shoot manual on one of them, it's like driving stick. You can learn to shoot manual on the other type. Any type of camera you learn the mechanics of, and you understand ISO, white balance, shutter speed, and iris, well, that's where it gets confusing. I'll explain that later too. But if you learn the manual settings on one, it will naturally transfer into the other one. Uh-oh, come here, computer. See, my computer's getting bored of me. There we go.
I hope our listeners and watchers aren't, though. I mean,
Kevin
you know,
is.
We're just going on such a tangent today. We're really
Okay.
hyped up on
But you know
coffee.
what I mean? Like, if you ever
I
driven,
do.
you
Well, it's
learn
just
how
like with
to.
audio. It's
you
just like with audio.
Yeah, if you can drive stick in a truck, you can drive stick in a car.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna throw a sideball. You ready? I'm gonna sideball.
Let's
this
go hit
here.
us with the curveball.
Okay. Let's say you can't afford a mirrorless camera.
Very,
Oh, dum,
very
dum,
possible.
dum, dum.
Hugely
possible.
I think, without having any real statistics, I think maybe opinionated here,
No, you're
65% of any live streamer is not going to be able to afford a mirrorless camera.
Yeah,
I think
because
that's fair
again,
to
you're
say.
just buying. You're
The
just
body.
buying the body.
like the
Right.
EOS R body, no lenses, nothing else,
What?
is $1,800.
I was gonna say it's like $2,000
Yeah.
just the body.
That
right?
like this little rig here that's little and is like a
And the-
$2,400 setup.
I was gonna say the 35 millimeter
So-
lens is like $600.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's play on the 65-70%
Yeah.
of people who are not going to be able to afford a 4K
Yep.
or 8K mirrorless camera, right out the gate.
yeah.
Yes.
What would you give them as possible things to look for, and why, in a traditional camcorder?
I'll go first. You want
Yeah,
to go?
you can go.
All right.
No,
I
you
would
go.
say
No, you go.
I would say one of the first big things you want to look for and consider is, and this is just my opinion, but is the distance that camera can zoom in depending on what you're filming.
Okay.
So if it's different all the time, then try to get more zoom. But if you know it's like, okay, we just need to film this auditorium, and it's like, should I get the 12x zoom or should I get the 20x zoom? So I probably get the 20x zoom because you're
Okay.
filming an auditorium, you're in the back, there's probably 20 rows of seating in front of you. You need to be able to zoom up on stage. And I would say zooming in, and then the next thing, can you tell? I don't know if you can really tell low light quality. It's like not the f-stop.
You know what I do?
Go for it.
It's the lens, the sensor size.
Yeah.
Visit YouTube and see some reviews of these.
I go to YouTube and I
Thank you.
say
Good
Canon
call,
Vixia HF R800 low light test.
Examples.
which is a very low tier.
You'd be surprised. what you can find people
I'm
doing,
just
or
saying,
sample
it's-
footage.
It's a very
Yeah.
low tier camcorder.
Yeah.
It's a low tier camcorder.
It's the bottom of the barrel.
Right. Outside of using your iPhone.
You're better off using your iPhone, maybe. I don't know. It depends. We
Doesn't
can go
have-
into
doesn't
that.
have 20 times zoom,
Doesn't
but
have
That's
zoom.
true. Oh yeah, the zoom
unless you buy
factor.
those nifty little kits now that give you the lenses, your zoom lens would be like this long.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Right.
That's
Okay.
true.
So, all right. So, what's another thing that any proprietor of looking to purchase one of these would be? Like, I mean, okay, so we've
Yeah.
got zoom, right? We've got low light options. What are some things like standard features that you would say are needed on a camcorder for our average
Mhm.
our
Yeah.
average person?
I would look at the way it can output video, like
So
Wade
the-
mentioned
The
earlier.
IOs.
Yeah, the inputs and outputs. I would just make sure it has some sort of HDMI output that can send a clean signal. Pretty much any video camcorder will.
Doesn't matter what type of HDMI signal out it is.
No, because you can always get it to a regular size HDMI. The point
Well,
is
Yeah.
the point is you're going to want to see some sort of HDMI out.
And I'll say this. No with a little asterisk, but like if it's micro HDMI, I mean that can go maybe like 10 feet, 15 feet. If it's
Yeah.
mini HDMI, it's like that can also only go like 15 feet. If it's full size HDMI, which is a little bit more rare, I feel like in smaller cameras, you might be able to get 25, maybe 50 feet. So keep that in mind too. Is placement of your cameras, because I feel like a lot of times people buy cameras and they think, oh, I can just buy that 100-foot HDMI cable I saw on Amazon for $46, and it's like you could,
I have a
but
feeling you looked at that
it might not
earlier.
work. Well, I won't say the piece of advice we got from this one guy at a hotel. He said if they make it, just buy it. I'm like,
But-
nope, that's not how that works.
That's not right.
That's not how it should work.
No, that's exactly how it
Yeah.
should work.
That's
If they
not-
make it, just buy it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what's funny though, Gary, about the low cost, like what to look for features? There are a lot of brands that just sell better gear than other brands. And
Without throwing anybody under the bus.
without throwing anybody under the bus, don't buy cameras. Well, okay, and here's why. Because you can look at two cameras side by
He
side.
threw him under the bus.
Oh, we're not getting them as a sponsor.
Sorry if you're listening to this. I'm
it's
sorry.
not about that. I'm sure they make great cameras, but the problem is people like definitely price shop, which is fine. But you can look at two cameras and look at them side by side and look at the top 4 specs of each camera, and they could be identical. And that doesn't mean that they're even close to looking alike, which is why I always do like the footage samples thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, yes, this camera says it's 4K. That doesn't mean it's a beautiful camera.
Oh yeah, no, I've
There's
seen
a
that
lot of
happen.
marketing that goes into these products to get you to buy them.
I've seen that happen.
You know how that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. We recently bought for our house of worship for our church. We bought a smaller camera. I'm not going to give the name out.
If they listen to the podcast and you pay attention, you'll know what it is. though.
You might. You just might. But we bought a small one, and it says it can do 4K. Now, on the video, the actual camera, it doesn't look anywhere near 4K. And when we output it into the A10 minis at 1080, it doesn't even look like it's 1080. And we bought this camera specifically for our Bible study room because it has the microphone built in.
Yeah.
And it's from a big named company that does a lot with audio.
Mm-hmm.
But this thing does not have, and we thought it was a decent system. And we're kind of regretting
That's
that.
a bummer.
Yeah. So I definitely know, like, if you're a novice at this, like I am, I know not to buy that camera off
Yeah,
of Amazon.
And I'll say,
Yeah.
I will. Yes, I will say, and I'll say two things too.
Not saying where I got it or
Not
anything.
saying where I
Yeah.
bought it on sale.
Yeah. Make sure that if you are going to buy a new camera, we've said this before, rent it before you buy it. If you can rent it.
Yeah.
If you
it's a
can't
higher-end
rent it
model.
from a company,
Find a place that has one.
I
that
don't
you
know
can
if that's
see
a
it.
good sign. Yeah.
Go to Best Buy
Yeah.
and see if they have one that
Yes.
you can look
Yeah.
at it, right?
So, but always rent before you buy. I mean, Josh, and we have some horror stories of we've spent, we bought these two, and again, not naming names, we bought these two cameras. It cost us, anywhere from $5,000 to $6,000 for both camcorders. We got them in our hands, and we were just never happy with them. And then we switched to our Sonys, which were the same price, and they were a little older than these ones. And the Sonys don't do 4K. These other ones did 4K, and they were like all special.
Yeah.
And we were so much happier with our Sonys.
I feel like that's how you're gonna feel when you guys get that digital mixing console in. Like,
Oh.
I think you're right, actually.
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's a great point.
yeah. Well, I'm not just another pretty face, pal.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we've got we got sensors, we've got all these. What are some other other than HDMI and outputs and inputs? What are some other standard things that you would say? Please look at these things. Like most people, they want a suggestion, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, if we can be honest, like we all know this. Like our clients have called in or emailed in. And I was like, I just want a suggestion. Like,
Just
you
give
guys
me
know
a
what
range.
works.
Yes.
Let me know what works, right? So, without naming names, what are some things that our viewers and listeners should look for in a camera that may be sub $2,500?
I mean, anything at this point should be able to record in 4K. And I know I said that's a buzzword. It is a buzzword. It's used like way too often, but it should be able to do 4K at this point. And I think that it's important to look at what you're actually doing as an organization. Are you trying to just live stream, or do you have other side projects that you're trying to film too?
So multifaceted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you
approaches
need
using your
something more
camera, okay.
multifaceted, then you really need to be paying attention to can this camera do slow motion?
Does it have a hot shoe to add, an audio?
Like,
Yeah.
can I add I was about to just say audio inputs. I mean, can I add an XLR shotgun mic to the top of it? Because I'm going to be holding it like this and filming someone
Right.
at just some quick grab and go stuff to
Yeah.
promote said thing that's coming up in
Does
a
it
month.
have enough outputs for me to be able
Yeah.
to run SDI or HDMI out on it? Or
Can I plug a microphone into it, like a nicer microphone?
just a microphone in general?
Yeah.
Right?
Can I plug anything like that?
Does it
'Cause-
mount to a tripod?
Yeah. Because I know if anybody's shopping on a budget, then they're probably not just wanting a one-trick pony. And in which case, that's where the Canon Vixia line is really good.
I actually look forward to a one-trick turtle
Yeah.
myself. But,
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, maybe. I mean, I'll name some names, but we always recommend the Canon Vixia line. And if the people want to know, if you're just God dang it, I've listened to this for 27 minutes and you guys haven't said any suggestions. It's my suggestion is Canon Vixia. That whole line, they come from $250 all the way up to $1,000 or $1,500.
I think they're about
They
$1,500.
have the Canon,
I would say their perfect hybrid.
Yeah,
is this one, the
and then there's
HF
also there you go.
G60, and
Yeah.
it's a 4K camcorder. It's a nice looking camera. It looks good. The
And-
optics are good too.
Yeah, and we say this in
It's
all
got
of
a good
our,
mix of digital
feel
and
like we
optical zoom.
say this in all of our webinars and stuff like that. But these Canon cameras, they will grow with your production.
Right, and that's
what
the
we
point,
say.
though,
That's the
isn't it?
point. Is you might
Right.
you might go $900 for a G40 or G50. That's a lot. It's but once you get it, it's locked in. It's good. And then a year and a half from now, you might go, I need another camera.
Mhm.
So and now we have a $2,500 budget. So it's you get the $2,000 camera, but the Canon still can hold its own
Sure.
and be your wide shot now or be a backup close up, whatever it is. And yeah, so I'm a big fan of the Canon Vixia stuff, even though we're using Sony's. But
So we talked about accessories and options for things, and this might trail off from the camera side, but do you think the tripod makes all the difference too?
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
No, I'm Gary.
100%. Yeah, we have we talked about this on a podcast?
We have
yet?
not, but I didn't
Oh.
want to go deep down the rabbit hole here. But I mean,
Yeah, tripods are
I'm gonna
really
be honest.
important.
You sent me one of these NXR, Sony cameras, and to use for one of the webinars, and you gave me the flimsiest Manfrotto I had ever seen,
Gary, that's not my fault.
and I was like, and I'm looking at this thing, I'm like, this thing ain't gonna hold this, right? So, but I know that we're talking cameras, but really, it's a multi
It is.
thing here.
Yeah.
You have to consider everything down the line, quality of your cable that you're using. And I'm sorry, if you're buying cheap $7 HDMI cables, those will probably work for your new PS5,
Mhm.
all right? But they're not going to work for a camera all the time. They could burn out quickly.
They can burn out quick.
So
yeah.
good quality camera, good quality cabling, good quality microphones, good quality tripods. We're not saying buy good, excellent quality of anything. We're just saying,
Yeah.
look, do your research and find good quality
And I mean,
stuff.
it just goes to there's you have to balance out like what the weakest link in your chain is.
Well,
You
it's
know?
usually Clements, but
Yeah, yeah. But you
Depends on the day.
But again, there's no if you're gonna hey, I have $2,500 to spend. You spend that all on a camera, and then you go to Walmart and you buy the $10 tripod
ProTech tripod.
on your own budget because you're like, oh, they didn't give me any more money. It's like that tripod's not gonna be able to hold the camera you just bought.
Most likely
Let
not.
alone if you need to follow anything, it's gonna be really bad. So yeah, so tripods that is an investment. I know when we first bought we bought a tripod for like $600. We're like, why did we do this? And
you found out why.
we found out why. It works great. One that we love a lot, and it's just sitting right here, so I'm just gonna read it, is the Magnus Rex 4000. And we got it, I think, for $250. Now, again, if you've never spent $250 on a tripod, that's quite a bit of money. But
That's like spending $250 on seat covers for your car.
it is. But it holds our Sony cameras amazingly. I film a lot of my stepdaughter's basketball games with it, and the ability to move the camera around and be smooth and everything like that. People are like, this stream is so much better than like the high school, and it's just one guy over there. I'm like, it's because I have a really nice tripod,
and
along with a good
it's
camera.
pretty
but
affordable.
yeah.
How much is that one? Is it
This I
$250?
think it's $250.
So it's affordable, but it still has all the professional features that they're not professional features that I was saying like before, where they're just marketed like professional, but they're not. It operates like a professional tripod, and I'm sure other manufacturers would explain why that's no good or like why it's not built the same. But in our end user experience, it's hard to notice the difference between that and like a $600-$700 tripod sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So would you say, and I'm going to switch gears on you. Yeah.
No, it's fine.
So would you
We're
say,
just giving you the quick tips today.
Yeah, the quick tip stuff.
Yeah.
Would you say mobility is a factor in a lot of this too? Like, I understand it's based on type of broadcast or type of, event or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But like, I'm talking more like setup, tear down.
I think it's easier to set up a professional camcorder because, like I said, the camera, well, as long as you know how to use it, but but they let you shoot in auto. I think it's easier to set up a camcorder because it's designed as one system. Whereas, like I said before, when we're buying mirrorless cameras, we're piece parting it, we're modding it. We need to think about a lot of other things that come into play.
3D printing stuff for it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So it's easier for true run and gun type stuff as long as you're not concerned about getting that cinematic.
When you
image,
say
like
run
I
and
said.
gun, what do you mean?
I mean, do you remember the first professional camcorder we bought? We went to a 5K, and I literally ran around the course, and I was able to like pull it up, get shots.
You can
run.
kind of stabilize it a little bit, handheld a little bit better.
Yeah, you can.
A little,
You
because
can.
if it's a little bigger, or usually those camcorders, they have like the little side grip thing.
Right.
Because it's
Yeah.
meant to be handheld. So like they just do a little bit better
Yeah.
than just your normal like mirrorless where you're kind of holding it and you're like,
This is before
Yeah.
you guys had like a Ronin
But you're
or
gonna,
something, right?
yeah, it was before we had our own stabilizer. Like, if you're gonna use a mirrorless camera and it doesn't have built-in stabilization, you're gonna need some sort of stabilizer. But you're also, with that run and gun professional camcorder, you're gonna get that news documentary ENG style video look. You know what I mean? Where it looks like a couple of young 20-year-olds showed up to a 5K and were whipping a camera around. But it's good. It's convenient. You don't have to set up your shots the same way.
you don't have to change lenses.
Yeah,
you probably
you
don't
don't
have to change batteries
overthink.
as much.
So if you're just doing that, like, it's almost like documentary style, I guess you could call it.
So,
But you're just trying to get the stuff as fast as possible.
So what would you say to the individual who would say, I don't need the mirrorless camera to do my live stream, and I don't need a regular camcorder. I'm gonna go with the GoPro. What would you say?
Oh,
Dare.
they're so cool now, though.
You said you wouldn't make us mad today. No,
Yeah,
I'm
you
kidding.
promised.
No.
Hey, I promise nothing. Okay?
Actually, I'll say this because we've worked with clients where they hang like GoPros, or we recommend a Sony Action Cam all the time. That's discontinued now, but I love it. Throw it on the screen, and if the camera is just going to be static and it needs to be wide and cover like a basketball court, that might work. If you just want a super wide shot and that's all you can do, I think that's fine. Now, do I recommend streaming via the GoPro to somewhere like Facebook? I mean, I've never done it for a long time, so I don't think that's the best idea. Wirelessly stream from your GoPro to Facebook or something. I don't know if I could recommend that because the GoPro streaming's just like a fun add-on for the GoPro. it's not the main GoPro's thing. It's not the main thing to be an encoder.
It's an action camera.
It's an action camera. It's meant to be
it's for
out
action.
and record, and the new ones can record in like 5.7K and all this stuff. It with hey, cherry on top, you can also stream. So like, don't stream from it. But if that's what
we just added RTMP for
if
fun.
if that's what works for your organization, the nice thing is, I mean, I would stick a GoPro on like a light stand, get a little mount, and you can move that sucker around real quick. But I guess it has to be plugged into stuff, and you need a media mod. There's a lot more.
Look at him go.
I'm just unraveling.
And the angles on GoPros are so ridiculously wide.
Oh yeah,
you can't really capture
and
anything
when you
unless
switch it just gets grainier. And grainier
it's
and
designed
grainier
as a
you get
point
narrow.
of view camera, so it's really designed to show one person's point of view.
Okay.
Which is why if you were ever to try to use a GoPro for like an interview, I'd set up right here in front of you, this far away from you, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, why do you look so far away?
Right, because of the fisheye lens that's
yeah,
built into
it's
it.
so like distorted, and it doesn't give you that same.
So
look.
basically, what you're saying is don't use those unless you're gonna have action involved in your.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
a good B or C camera or like a bonus shot.
Like I think a GoPro would be amazing if you were doing a sporting event and you wanted it on the field, but you didn't have a camera operator, right? And you're just like, I'm just gonna stick this on a stand in the corner of the basketball court. Like
or
on
you
the
put,
court,
you
or,
put it on the backboard. I know you see
Yeah.
those cameras that do
yeah,
that.
with a little hot
That's what
Hollyland
I mean, they
wireless
don't use
transmitter.
GoPros in the NBA, but they have a backboard camera, and it's like a fixed mounted lens, and that's how they get that view. But you could do that in a less expensive way.
I think you use a GoPro when you want to show
For free
a cool
throws.
shot. Yeah,
Yeah.
something cool.
And so
I
something
don't think
immersive.
it should be your main camera.
I'm gonna throw something else at you real quick here.
I love it.
Would you recommend using a webcam like a Logitech C270X? You're probably like, I've never seen
I
that
think
camera.
that's a great. Yeah, if your use case is like, I just need to set up my computer, and I'm like just giving this very straightforward in front of my computer presentation or whatever, then yeah, I think there's some really nice webcams out there. I know that market's crazy though, because the pricing and the quality is all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
And so do your research. That would be my
definitely go to
advice.
YouTube and search examples of webcam footage and stuff. But
I'm not against it, but definitely do your research,
And
because
I
I feel like it's easy to get suckered into something.
And I think to your point, Josh, if you're gonna be in front of your computer or right in front of that camera, it probably will work fine. You know, if you're going to mount that to a wall in the back of your church and run a USB cable down and plug it in your computer, I'm not too sure. I mean, if that's what you have and that's what you do to get into streaming, then by all means do it. We don't want to like stream shame. I don't know what you want to call it. Like, stream shame you. Like if you're streaming, we want you to be successful, and if that's the resources you have, then do it. Then you'll make it work. And the point is, once people start to see value in the streaming at your organization, hopefully there's a little more budget allocated to you, and now you're like, okay, I can buy the $200 camera or the $300 camera, and then a little bit more because more people are watching.
You're proving that it works.
If you have to just prove a concept works, then use a USB webcam. Just don't buy one for $20 off Amazon. It's probably not great.
So going back to that Best Buy thing.
Yeah, so back to Best Buy.
Maybe you do want to go there, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's enlightening to see some of the information that you guys have had over your experience of years of learning what systems work best with what and what cameras are working best. Your knowledge has definitely increased. I can see that from when I first met you, you know, and basically in cameras. So I'm going to ask both of you the same question right now. And I don't want either one of you to be biased in your opinion with each other. Okay.
Okay.
And I want you to answer at the same time.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you mirrorless or camcorder, and you cannot, there's no extra detail here. Like if you had one or the other, and that was the only option you had for live streaming.
For streaming. Okay.
Okay.
I got it.
Just for live streaming. I want you both to answer at the same time.
Yep. Got
Ready?
it.
3, 2, 1.
Camcorder.
Wow!
No!
You said no other factors were involved.
No
so
other factors.
I assume budget wasn't an option. So I
Correct.
could create my own Frankenstein.
Oh. Okay. I'm going to back mine up first because I'm ready. Because I thought
Go
of the
for it.
example as soon as you said it.
Yep, go
This
for
is
it.
why I'm saying this. When we would get hired to stream weddings during COVID. I mean, COVID's still a thing, but when COVID was heavy, we would get hired to stream weddings, and it would be one camera. Based on the person's budget, they would be like, hey, I just want to pay for one camera and whatever. So when I would go do that, I would use the Sony, and here's why. I can plug it in, so I know it's not going to power off. I can use a zoom controller, so I can, when the bride's walking down the aisle, I can zoom in nice and slow on her, and then pull nice and slow out, and go zoom in on different things. And when I was using one camera with my Sony, I would, move around a little bit. Hey, the pastor goes up to the podium, zoom in on him a little bit, come back out, and stuff like that. And record times. So if it's a wedding or something for streaming, I could record forever. Again, another time where I have chosen a camcorder, so I guess that's why my answer is so, I'm like, camcorder, is when I stream my stepdaughter's basketball games.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I use a Sony camcorder. Now, would the EOS R look way better on a 7200? Sure would, until that basketball is coming at you, and you can't, in the 70 millimeter is too close, or it's like
and
too
it
far
loses
in,
focus,
and it loses focus, and you can't zoom all the way out, because that camera most camcorders can get really wide.
Mm-hmm.
So like basketball comes by you, you're like this, and then they start going to the other side of the court, I can easily zoom back in. So
all right,
and smoothly, because on a
no, you
mirrorless-
can't help him defend.
No, well,
No,
I've
but-
always seen both sides of it.
I understand, but you chose mirrorless, so give me your mirrorless
man.
defense.
Yeah.
I think you converted him already.
No, you didn't. But I did forget about the AC power thing. The other advantage of a camcorder is obviously it's more often than not a professional camcorder you can plug into a wall. A mirrorless camera is designed to run on battery. But besides that, I just think I think the flexibility of changing lenses, anytime we side by side the imagery, it's just always so much better on the EOS R.
I agree with that.
And it's just like you can create so much better of scenes. Now, if in my case, like if I had to pick what I just picked, I am obviously souping up this mirrorless camera to get it to do very basic things that the professional one is already built into it. But to me, it's worth it to have a large sensor, good low light capability, to not worry about image grain or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, for me, like, the product I'm delivering is a good picture.
Right.
And if the camera can naturally deliver a good picture and I have to go get all this other stuff to make it happen, I'm willing to do it. But it's cumbersome, It's definitely less convenient.
Right. Well, I mean, you have your points in both fields, right? So, I mean, if money was no object, I'm sure you would buy the camera that has the larger lens, so you're able to do.
Well, you'd get one of those like $6,000 lenses that can like zoom.
Oh,
keep
yeah.
Focus.
Yeah. Parfocal lenses is what they're
Parfocal
called.
lenses, yeah.
Is where they don't lose focus as they zoom in and out. But then you have to get a focus puller and a zoom controller. And
you just like gadgets. That's
well, it's fun to see it all like built out.
actually in work, right?
Yeah.
See, so if I had my option, it would be a flashbulb camera, and at this point, I wouldn't
All right.
wouldn't have any problems.
That's fair.
But good topic,
Good
guys.
lighting.
I like it.
Yeah.
Good topic. I hope that some of our our listeners and our viewers, they get more out of this. So listen, if you are happening to watch or even listen, drop us a line. Let us know. Drop a comment or something. Let us know what one you would prefer and any questions you have for that. We would be interested to know and help out in that department.
Right.
But
Or just if you have a quick question of like, wait, I was thinking this camera or that camera, we might be able to help you make a recommendation.
can
So
make a
put
Because
it in
again,
the
it
comments.
all depends on the use case.
absolutely.
It definitely does.
Absolutely. Well, I would like to kind of wrap this up, but first we have to thank our sponsors, BoxCast, of course, the company we work
Absolutely.
for allowing us to do this and allowing us to take
Yeah.
a day off to actually record.
Thanks,
right?
Craig.
Oh,
Thanks,
we love
guys.
it. Yeah.
And but sure, an amazing audio
Oh.
company. We're very fond of them. They
Absolutely.
have blessed us with this awesome
Dude, their
equipment.
mics, I actually just did, because Josh usually does a lot of voiceover, but I had to do a voiceover like a couple weeks ago, and I just came here, I used one of these, and the quality is just so amazing.
It's butter, wasn't
Like
it?
we have
It's nuts.
like another $300 microphone from another company. This is like $250.
Yeah, these are about like
So these are about
$249, yeah.
$250. This other microphone was like $300, and that's what I always used to use. And I was like, yeah, this sounds good. And then once I switched to this, I was like, it's noticeably way better,
different.
and
Yeah.
it's a little cheaper, and it's just so easy.
Yeah.
It's plug and play. I love this thing.
Love it. Yep, absolutely.
So
everything,
MV7.
everything out of
Yeah,
the
the
box for
MV7.
sure has always been amazing. For
Yeah,
me.
and they're a great company to work with. And,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
They sell some amazing products. So again, thank you sure very much. Well, I think this is the close of this portion of our fairy tale.
Yes.
going in. You know,
Thank you for listening to us rant.
rant
and
and then
just yell a
let
lot.
these two argue at each other. You know, with
Yeah.
This is every day.
This is just a normal Thursday.
a normal Thursday. Well, you know, that's how it rolls. Well, I would like to also thank Kevin Kletzer, our producer. And by the time this episode airs, Kevin will be a married man.
Yeah.
So
Kevin.
congratulations, the Kletzer family.
He's gonna start crying.
He is going to start crying. All right. Well, for this episode of the BoxCast podcast, I'm Gary.
I'm Wade.
And I'm Josh.
Have a great day, guys. Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.